Hi everyone, I'm Jeanette, founder of eTail Maven e-commerce consulting. In the last video, I covered which sales to track on your website and how to find and calculate them. In this video, I will cover conversion and why you should be tracking it. Conversion is the percentage of your website traffic that converts to a sale. Those of you who are very new to e-commerce are going to be surprised how low this percentage actually is. On average, across the e-commerce industry, the average conversion rate is 2%. Yep, just a measly little 2%. What that means is, if 100 people came to your website, only 2 of them are going to purchase. Just 2. So clearly, you need a good amount of website traffic to make enough sales for your e-commerce venture to be worthwhile. The general math is, you take the count of your website buyers over a period of time. Doesn't matter what period of time, could be a day, a week, a month, a year, whatever you want to measure, and then you divide that number by the count of website visitors over the same exact period of time. What you will get is a percentage, your conversion rate. The math is easy. The tricky part is that many e-commerce platforms, metrics tracking tools, and Google Analytics have a slightly different method for how they determine purchasers and visitors. And to make it even more confusing, there are often different names for them as well. For instance, in Google Analytics, the buyer metric you're after is actually called transactions. Google defines transactions as the completed purchases on your website, otherwise known as orders to the rest of the world. Transactions is the closest metric they have to an actual buyer metric. It's not counting the buyers, it's counting the orders placed. Depending on the period of time you're measuring, you may have a higher count for orders than you would for a unique buyer count. One buyer could place multiple orders, so your order count would be higher than your buyer count. So transactions are a slightly inflated count of buyers. The discrepancy isn't going to be a lot over a short period of time, but no, there is a difference. Google's visitor metric you want to use for the math is called sessions. Google defines sessions as the period of time a user is engaged with your website. Just like a buyer over time could place multiple orders, a user could have multiple sessions. Since the transactions value in the equation is not a unique buyer count, you don't want to use a unique visitor count. So for a Google calculation of conversions, you will use transactions and sessions instead of buyers and visitors. Again, the discrepancy isn't going to be a lot over a short period of time, as most visitors don't come back over and over again in a short period of time. I'm explaining all of this because in Google Analytics, you will see an actual conversion metric displayed, and it's so easy to just take that metric and run with it. I want you to understand how they are calculating it because it's not the ideal way. I know, you'd think Google would be experts at this. I'm sure they have their reasons for their calculations, which they've changed a few times over the years. For whatever reason, Google has never provided a value for buyers and ignores the fact that a buyer could place multiple orders. So counting the transactions does not count the buyers accurately. Google provides a visitor metric, but they call them users. Everyone else calls them visitors. Like, come on, sometimes I wonder if they just set out to be confusing. Okay, as I covered in the last video, to get the most accurate data about your website performance, you want to pull it from your website. So instead of using Google for the conversion metric, use your website analytics tool. It's going to be more accurate and you will get the right metrics. Since I don't know which platform your site is running on, I can't say for sure what the naming convention is for these values we are after, but if you understand what goes into them, then you can likely sort it out. For example, if you're using Shopify, then you will find values for buyers and visitors. Both of these values are unique, as in a buyer is counted as a buyer once, and a visitor is counted as a visitor once. These are the best metrics to use to calculate conversion. The math is buyers divided by visitors to get the conversion rate. Be aware that Shopify also displays a conversion value without your having to calculate it. However, they are using sessions and orders to calculate it. Similar to Google's metrics and equally as inaccurate. I am pretty certain they are following Google's lead because of how confusing all this can be. Shopify just uses the proper term for customer purchases, which is orders. So if you're in a hurry, the pre-calculated rate can give you an idea of your conversion. If you want it to be accurate and you want to be able to compare to benchmarks and track your performance over time, I'd stick with pulling the two values and dividing. You can easily do this by putting a formula in your Excel spreadsheet where you keep track of your performance. Most established businesses are calculating buyers and visitors, but some others are on platforms without a built-in analytics tool and at the mercy of Google, taking the only metrics Google provides, which are transactions and sessions. So when we all talk conversion, most of us are talking about the buyer-visitor version. Go ahead, pull your data for the past 12 months, calculate your conversion rate, and compare it to the industry benchmark of 2%. Are you better or worse? By a little or a lot? There are some categories that will convert higher, like replenishable goods such as hair care or pet food. They tend to have very brand loyal customers who come back regularly to purchase, so they are much higher converting. If you are not a high converting category, yet you still have a high conversion rate, this is a sign of a fiercely loyal customer base, and in some cases, an opportunity for growth and brand awareness. There are many things that can affect your conversion. The best place to start is to be sure your website is easy to shop. You can send all the qualified traffic in the world to your site. If it's not easy to shop, the customer will abandon and the sale will be lost. Often with a poor user experience, you lose the customer for good. Sometimes we are so close to our own websites that we don't see what could be causing an issue for the customer. This is a great thing to outsource to an expert, such as myself. One of the services I offer is a user experience website assessment, where I comb through your website and tell you what is likely hurting your conversion, along with guidance on how to fix it all. If this sounds like something you could use, just request a consultation on my website, eTailMaven.com. Follow this page for more e-commerce words of wisdom in my quarantine series. If you have an e-commerce topic you wish I would cover, please add it to the comments below for me to consider. Stay healthy, folks.